The worst thing to do is buy a ticket to a NASCAR race, and it ends up being one of the most boring or most chaotic, worst races you've ever seen. That unfortunately has happened to many of us NASCAR fans, and in this video, we're going to look at some more worst races in NASCAR. One of the worst races in NASCAR was the 2008 Brickyard 400. It was NASCAR's first race with the new car of tomorrow at the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This race saw so many tire failures that NASCAR had to essentially put out their own stage cautions back then for every 10 to 15 laps. NASCAR would throw a caution, the entire field would come down pit road, and they'd have to change their tires. This happened for the entire race. Some drivers couldn't even make it the full 10 laps without blowing a tire. And just as pure mid-2000s fashion, Jimmie Johnson won the race, and that left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Speaking of Jimmie Johnson, another win that he won that was probably one of the worst races in NASCAR was the start to the 2019 season in the Clash. This race had rain in the area that plagued the race all day long, but when they finally got going, every one of the drivers for a non-points event rode the wall and choo-choo trained all the way around the top side. It wasn't until Jimmie Johnson poked his nose out behind Paul Menard, accidentally hitting Paul Menard and collecting everybody. Once the crash ensued, ironically, the rain came and Jimmie Johnson was declared the winner.
I think Menard right now is in the catbird seat. He can stay in that outside lane with Jimmie Johnson on his back bumper. That's working really well.
Oh, Jimmie going to take.
Oh, no, Jimmie!
Contact.
And around goes Menard into the wall. Taking cars with him.
Come on, high. Clear. All clear.
Yeah.
Big wreck.
You got it.
Well, I'm just wondering, did that suck the back end of the car around on Menard, or did they make contact that turned him around?
When the 48 gets on your bumper like that, it probably had something to do with it.
The 2022 Texas playoff race saw another one of them classic Goodyear tire failures. So many drivers and race leaders were blowing tires throughout the day. It created so much uncertainty between the drivers and teams that it produced one of the most awfulest racing we've ever seen. From leaders blowing tires to mid-pack cars crashing, this race had it all, and unfortunately, I was there and had to witness it.
Oh, and into the wall, the 9 of Chase Elliott. Out of turn 4, Chase Elliott into the wall. You see the fire coming out the right side. And he comes right back in front of the field.
On the right side here.
You see the smoke out the back of the car, hard contact with the right rear. Comes back around, swings into the right front. Turn 3. You see it.
That seems to be a consistent number.
Yeah.
34, 35, right in that lap count.
One of the big conversations in NASCAR is, does a bad finish make a bad race? Sometimes. And in this case, it did, and it was the 2015 Talladega race. After the massive accident in Daytona in the summer race, NASCAR had a new overtime rule. They was only allowed one attempt at overtime. If a caution comes out, well, that's the end of it. But can you guess what NASCAR didn't do? Follow by their own rules. Jimmie Johnson spun off the initial restart, crashing and bringing out a caution. Supposedly should have ended the race. NASCAR said that was not an attempt because the flagman did not have the green flag in hand. So they re-racked him and tried again. But this time, Kevin Harvick was currently blowing an engine. He couldn't lose multiple positions or it would knock him out of the playoffs. He intentionally crashes Trevor Bayne, causing a massive accident. The caution comes out, and in a controversial finish, NASCAR gave the win to Joey Logano. Fans were not happy. The 2021 season saw some big changes for NASCAR, and one of the big ones was Indianapolis would be run on the road course. Everybody was excited, and me too. It was something different. But what happened was something that nobody could have expected. The curbing ended up breaking with just a handful of laps to go, causing a massive crash.
That contact between the two leaders is allowed. Oh, the 24 is spinning. The 24's there's multiple cars into the wall here. There must be oil or some kind of fluid down on the racetrack right there in turn. We got more cars coming in.
William Byron is reporting that the curb came up. He hit the curb in the 24.
Now here is watch the 24 car here. Boom! Destroys the splitter. The car just spins out. Everyone behind him piles in. And it ain't over.
That's not the only thing that happened in that race. With 2 laps to go, Chase Briscoe was pushed off course, and he then intentionally crashed Denny Hamlin after being black flagged. Chase Briscoe ended up being disqualified.
It's all clear now, though. He leads them into 7. Briscoe right on his tail. We'll have to see how NASCAR...
Stop and go. 14 has a
stop and go for the 14 car. He is not racing for the win. Oh, he's going to spin Denny. Denny is spun out. The 14 car spun Denny Hamlin out into turn 10.
One of the most boring Coca-Cola 600s was in 2020. With the 550 package, this was bound to be one of the most boring races in NASCAR history, and that it was. The only saving grace of the race, you could say, was William Byron spun with a handful of laps to go, and Chase Elliott ended up pitting, costing himself the race, and gave the win to Brad Keselowski. Besides that, nothing happened at that race. Continuing on with the Coca-Cola 600, during the 2009 Coca-Cola 600, this race was actually rain shortened. But during the race, they would go green for a little bit and then ride into caution with the mist. Go green, ride into caution with the mist. It was raining off and on. This race was cut short. It was run on a Monday, and nobody enjoyed this race. Also, one of the worst races at Kentucky Speedway was the 2020 race. Now, before you freak out in the comments section, let me explain. The finish, fantastic, but the overall race from lap 1 to the final 2 laps were completely boring. Nothing happened that entire race that was memorable. It was one of the most boring Kentucky races I've ever watched. The finish is the only thing that ever saved that race. The 2019 race I liked, but one of the worst races was definitely that 2020 Kentucky race. Everybody always says that the mid-2000s were great and there were no bad races, but there definitely were some. Charlotte Motor Speedway did this weird repave job that were blowing out tires because the cars were going way too fast in the corners. I'm going to play some clips and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. This race had so many tire failures, and yet again, Jimmy Johnson won.
There you see him going through the tire wall. Wow.
Almost the same spot that Junior at the wall, but now back in the wall again.
Yep, and you'll watch the car here. It'll just go sideways, and he feels it, but the right rear is down at this point.
Sadler spins.
Has led 112 laps, backs it into the wall, almost exactly what happened to Tony Stewart.
I don't blame NASCAR for doing what they're doing. They're just trying to do the right thing to make sure all the drivers are safe. So, you know, we came in, gave up the track position just to show them that we put the right tires on with the right air pressures that they wanted. So, you know, it may hurt us, it may not, but we're doing the right thing. We're doing, you know, what they want us to do. So.
Blowing up behind you. Blowing up behind you.
And we're wrecking.
Thank you, NASCAR.
That's a 9 car, the leader.
Kane.
He's got, sure, a right front tire down.
Caution is out. Dave?
He had just reported moments ago getting tighter and tighter. The car refused to turn, and they said just take care of it. About that time, he found the wall.
I don't think he's hit the wall, Dave.
Yeah, he just blew right front, Dave.